Hello, I am Panos
Hello.
Kotzathanasis, and this is ASEAN Movie Pulse Talks. Today I'm here with He Shuming. Hello, how are you?
Hi, Panos. Good. I'm good. How are you?
I am fine, I am fine. So tell us, your latest film, Ajooma, just premiered in Busan. How was the reception?
The reception has been incredible. I couldn't ask for much better reception. We had really selling out screenings. The premiere was sold out. We had 400 audience. Uh, we had a great Q&A with the actors who were with us from Seoul and from Singapore. And also the audience have been very warm and welcoming as they've always been in Busan. And we had a lot of audience who came up after the screening who had so many questions and so many comments that I'm just thrilled. My actress here, she's absolutely on cloud nine. So yeah, I'm very
Mhm.
happy with the buzz.
Okay, that's great, that's great. And the film is billed as the first Singapore-Korean co-production. Can you tell us a bit how did the whole thing happen?
So this is a film that I started developing 6 years ago when I was studying at the American Film Institute, AFI Conservatory. So I had to develop some features, and this was a feature that I started working on, and very much inspired by my own mother, who uh, is completely obsessed with Korean drama.
Uh,
So at that point, I just observed her age. She's getting older, and I'm also reflecting on my relationship with her. I'm living abroad, and but using this obsession of Korean drama that is a escape for her, and for a lot of people out there who the appeal of Korean dramas is phenomenal globally. So I wanted to use that as a way to tell a story about this woman. And so we knew we were going to shoot in Korea, and it was definitely going to be a Singaporean film, but in a completely Korean setting, a completely Korean landscape. And so then we really kind of wanted to develop the script to be very, I think it wanted to be honest to me as a filmmaker, as being my first feature film, but also wanting it to really express the desire of this woman, an older woman who we normally don't see older women, middle-aged women, taking center stage in a lead role, especially in Asia. So I think it was really that, and it was a co-production with Singapore and Korea. So we had the film commission from both countries coming together as well to help us realize this film.
Do you think that in general co-productions is a good solution for independent films, financially particularly?
I think so. I think it can be helpful if it is the right project. And for us, it was a no-brainer because we were shooting both in Singapore and in Korea. So it definitely helped in some ways. I mean, Korea can be an expensive city to shoot in, Seoul in particular, and in Singapore as well. It's not cheap either living here. But I think in comparison for a Singaporean film, a first feature, it is definitely much more expensive than your regular first feature from Singapore. But it has always been an intention that we can't compromise a lot of, say, the production value of the film. We had to get from the very beginning. I wanted to have this Korean drama in the film, and we recreated this Korean drama, and we wanted an actor, a known actor that everyone recognizes, that is known in Korean drama, and all of that is not cheap.
Mm.
So it was making sure that we had all of these resources and to make sure that we tell the story as best as we can. Yeah.
And has your mother watched the film yet, or
No, no,
no,
not
not
yet.
not yet?
You're the
Okay.
you're the third person to ask me this. We talked about it in a screening as well. I'm curious to see how she feels. She's gonna watch it at the premiere in Singapore, so we will also see how it goes. Yeah.
Okay. But Does she also drink?
She does, not a lot, but she does. She's
Okay.
very shy about it. She's always kind of like, oh, I have to, I have to try not to drink too much. But when she can drink, I
Okay.
think.
Okay. And do you also watch K-dramas?
I do for the film. I mean, it's. I watch a lot of well, not of late because it's been so busy. But when I have my free time, I do watch some Korean drama. I'm more of. I'm not follow. I don't follow a lot of the Korean drama. I usually follow what's been trending. So like some of the Korean dramas I do watch, and if I have time, I try to follow. I don't watch the kind of Korean drama my mom likes to watch. There's a particular type of Korean drama she really like, and those are a little too long for me. I can't commit that much time to the kind of drama that she watches. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, okay. And you wrote the script along with Chris Song. Can you tell us a bit about the
Yes.
procedure?
So with Chris, I started working on the script on my own for about 3 years. The film had entered a film lab, CFIC, which is a Southeast Asian fiction film lab, which took place for over a year. So this was a lab that was very helpful for the film, for the script, and we spent a lot of time really developing it. And then at some point, the process can be long, and we wanted it to be great. And for me, I felt like I had a bit of a writer's block a little bit. I think I couldn't maintain a bit of a distance. So Anthony, my producer, decided that we should have a writer come in to maybe see it from a different perspective. And for me, also, it is a film that centers on a middle-aged woman. Um, and I also felt like I wanted a female perspective on this. So having Chris come on board, she basically, I only had one meeting with her. I didn't know her prior to working together. She took the script, she reworked it a little bit, and then we started going back and forth again. I think she helped me undo certain of the blockage I had as a writer. And then it sort of just became very organic in a way of, okay, she will write the draft and then I will take it and then I will work on it a little bit and then I'll write it, I'll give it back to her and then she'll rewrite the things and then we talk about it. So it ended up being really collaborative in that way. And also just very organic. I think we felt like there were certain things that we love about what we have wrote, but also at the end of the day, it was about this woman in the film, and the journey that she goes through. And also for me as a writer and originating the story, she was very invested in making sure that this is also a story that comes from me as the director. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that one of the comments of the film regarding the protagonist is getting out of your comfort zone, let's say. Is that important for you? How do you feel about the concept?
Yeah, I mean, it was immediately clear that Auntie needed to be get out of her comfort zone as quick as possible. Just even wanting to make a decision to go is a big step for her. And I go back to my very first starting point about the film when I started writing it was, would my own mother do that? Would she travel by herself somewhere? And my answer is no. But I'm curious to see what if she does it. So so with the script, she goes through all these things where she has to sort of, do things she doesn't normally do and then go into the deep end and then along the way discover new things, make new friends and rediscover herself about her identity beyond being a mother. So that was very important to me, but also being quite realistic about the fact that yes, you can go on a life-changing holiday or a life-changing trip, but sometimes when you go back home, things sometimes goes back to normal, and that's quite real. So I didn't want to romanticize too much of like, yeah, everything is gonna get better at the end. I think I leave it to the audience to decide that the hope this character would have, and you can decide for yourself if this is eventually a life-changing journey for her. Yeah.
And how would you describe Quanto as a person?
Quanto is a character. He is essentially a man-child. He is someone who is, in some ways forced to become mature at a very young age because of the responsibility of being a father at a young age, and realizing that it's catching up on him. And I think he desperately wanted to do good, but the ways he was trying to do it didn't help, and it gets him into trouble. But he's also a very charming man, and he has always been able to get by with his charm. But sometimes that doesn't really work, and then in some ways, he has to find out through a stranger, or discover himself through a stranger, that he is able to have find that responsibility and be a good person, and be a good father, essentially. So I think the way I also see it with Auntie is that as she goes on this trip, she meets people that are facets of her own relationship with her son. So Quanto is one of them. Yeah.
But do you like him as a character? Let's say, would you go out for a drink with him? Let's say.
I think so. I think he would be fun to hang out with, and he's also someone that you feel like, dude, you need to go home. You have a kid, and you need to guide him a little bit, I think.
Okay. And can you tell us a bit about the casting? Was it difficult having Singapore and Korean actors together?
So the process of casting with my actress, Hong Hui Fang is a veteran television actress in Singapore. So I grew up watching her, but I never really thought she would fit the role, just because I've always had this image of her as this actress on TV. But then when she came in for the audition, she read a scene, and I was immediately sort of like surprised that, oh, maybe she could be. I think she's the one. So then I sent her the script, and then she texted, when she came back, she realized that, oh, I had no idea it was the lead role. I thought it was just a supporting role. I'm playing someone's mom. That's it. And so we started working for a year, workshopping, because as a television actor, sometimes you have a lot of habits that are not great for film. So it was really a learning curve for her. In Korea, we had a casting director who worked with us to get the actors that you saw in the film. So with Kwon-woo, the character Kwon-woo, who is played by Kang Hyung-suk. So he he met the criteria that I had. I needed a Korean actor who could speak Mandarin, and that's very hard to find. And he spoke Mandarin, very little, because he spent a few years in China growing up. So he fit that criteria, but he was also a really dedicated actor. And I immediately thought, okay, he would be a great fit for the role. With Mr. Jong Dong-wan, who played the older security guard, I actually know him from television. He's a very known face in Korean TV and film, and also a very established stage actor. So when I watched his tape, I basically told the casting director, I don't need to audition him. If he says yes, I'm good. I would like to work with him. And he actually, within a day, he said, yeah, I'll do it. And he read the script, he liked it, and he was excited to be part of a co-production. So it was very quick. With Yojingu, there was a challenge because we had a whole list of Korean actors, famous Korean actors that we wanted to get. But of course, this is not a big budget film, and it's a small feature, a small debut feature that it's hard to get a big actor in. So, but my casting director, called everyone, and I see on the Google sheet, like they approach all these big names, and you see on the column, yes or no or maybe, and and I get very excited when I see like Hyun Bin, for example, says maybe, and then immediately it was like no. So with Yojingu, I think part of it was he read the script, his management read the script, he actually really liked it. And he and Mr. Jong Dong-wan were in a drama together, so he felt like, oh, that would be nice to be in the same film. So we were very lucky that he said yes, because he is, in some ways, a very familiar face on Korean television. He grew up as a child actor, and then he has sort of blossomed into this leading man on both television and film. And so it fits that character perfectly, that this is a TV star that Auntie looks up to a lot. Yeah, so working together was also great. We spent about a few weeks workshopping with the actors together before we started shooting. Yeah.
And was your treatment of the veterans and the young actors different, or how was your collaboration with them?
With the younger actor, with Kang Hyung-suk, we met quite often when I arrived in Korea for pre-production. So he had like his language classes for Chinese, but he also had classes with me, like workshop with me. And we talked about the characters at length, and we did a lot of a lot of discussion mostly, and then working with Hong Hui Fang. With Mr. Jong, it was quite minimal. It was a lot of talking, just hanging out, having drinks, getting to know each other, and having dinners and hearing his stories, because I know he is able to deliver. And for me, to be honest, it was quite intimidating in the beginning because he is a very established actor, and I have so much to learn from him. And also, I was afraid about our language because I don't speak Korean, and it was always relying on, or rather, I had my translator with me constantly, helping me with making sure that nothing gets lost in translation. And then with Hui Fang, I think we got very close. Obviously, it's easier because we both speak English and Mandarin, but it became we sort of worked together, but also I pushed her to get her performance right. And in the process, I think we became very good friends. And she's become sort of a mother figure to me also. So it's all felt very good. It all fell into a nice place.
In general, do you allow improvisation, or was it very strict the way they act?
I do. I improvise. I think for me, I see it with the way I see it is when I workshop a scene that's written that's written in the actors in mind, and they read it, and then they would make suggestion. And they're usually very polite about it. It's like, can I change this to this? And then can I add this? And then we'll see if it works, and sometimes if it really doesn't work, I would let them know. And then I feel like, let's try it the way it's written. And then you might want to think about how you want to add on certain things or have a bit of motivation to have that line land. So it has happened a few times that when the suggestion comes in for improvisation, it makes the film better. So I'm always sort of open to that kind of suggestion. I'm not too strict about like, oh, you have to follow this line. But also like for the lines in Korean, I wouldn't be able to understand, to be honest, whether they improvise it or not. But my script supervisor would tell me if like they add a line or not. And then we then discuss like, okay, I see what you did. Okay, I like that suggestion. Okay, maybe let's keep to that. So some of the more comedic stuff, scenes in the film, some of it were improvised, or rather, sort of like we made it better on set. We add a few lines and a few beats, more than it's written in the script, and it ended up working a lot. Yeah.
And can you tell us a bit about the action scenes, which I found are a bit unusual for this type of thing? You have a car chase, you have violent scenes, so tell us a bit about those.
when I remember Chris suggested writing this car chase scene, and then I read it, and I went like, after reading it, because I was very um excited about it when I read it, but also I just went like, I'm already shooting in Korea in the winter. I'm already shooting a film in a language I don't speak. I'm already doing all these things, and now you want to add a car chase scene. I've never done a car chase scene in even commercials or short films. I've never. This is a lot of action. It's a lot of coordination. It's a lot of wanting to make sure that it fits the tone of the film right. So I was very clear that we didn't want, and it makes sense. It shouldn't be an action scene that screams but like production, or there's like drone shots or fast and furious, but we did look at those to get, see how it's like, but we also want to keep it simple but also exciting. um so we spent in fact, that was one of the longest scene that we had to storyboard and to really sketch out and plan and figure out logistically how we're going to make it work. So we spent about a day. We managed to close the road for a day, and we have a stunt team that helped us achieve what we want. And so there was a lot of coordination involved, but also we felt like maybe at this point we have to, do two cameras for that day. And even then, we could get as far as we could, and we needed to do pickup shots. So it ended up being the longest scene that we have to shoot, because logistically there was so much that we needed to do to get so many shots and so many coverage. And But yeah, I think at the end it was also the first scene I started cutting, because I told the editor to like, let's cut this now, so then I can see what we need, if we need more scenes, more shots to make it to sort of piece it together. Yeah.
And can you tell me also a bit about the scene where the protagonist becomes part of the Korean drama, gets inside?
So there was this actually, for so many drafts that we had for in the 5 years of developing, that's the scene that has never changed at all. It has always been there, because it's such I always felt like it's a scene that is important for Auntie to process her own feelings about whatever that she's gone through this drama that she's been watching. And it's almost like a magic moment where you really don't expect her to be in it, but it's also something she projects herself on what she's watching, and then understands what she's feeling. So we're figuring out how we want to do this. Is it, how can we make it seamless? Is it like in an edit way? Is it just going to be like a direct cut? And we sort of had a few versions where we tried to kind of, the original version that we shot had a bit more of like slightly more work that needed to be done with VFX, where the character could walk, and then the next thing you see is Yo Jin-gu comes in, and then you understand that it becomes seamless. But then I wanted her to sort of, okay, maybe she's been watching the drama on the tour bus, and then we go into the screen itself, and then it comes alive. So that ended up being the way that worked much better, in a way, that felt more surprising, I think, for the audience, but also just playing with music, playing with the texture of the screen, and just sort of going into it and introduce Auntie in that space. I thought it worked better. And then the audience reaction sometimes has been quite interesting, because sometimes they'll laugh, and then the minute you see Auntie in this getup and she speaks Korean in a way that's not very Korean, you start laughing, and then you realize, and also then you are emotionally, the audience are taken into a ride, and it settles in, and you watch this Korean drama come alive, and it can get quite emotional in a very melodramatic way.
And can you tell me a bit about the cinematography and what you wanted to do in the visual aspect of the film?
So I worked with my Korean cinematographer Huang extensively, discussing and the tone of how do we want to approach this film, going from Singapore to Korea, and then the Korean drama and the parts of the journey, the pacing, and then come back to Singapore again. We wanted to keep it real, like more realistic, but also I think it's trying to balance realism and a bit of constructed realism, or maybe just a bit of adjusting the tone of melodrama a little bit. So the Singapore scenes are obviously a little bit more realistic, or not realistic, just more like the more tinge of realism is in the Singapore scenes. And then when we go into Seoul, from the tropical Singapore to a wintry landscape, lighting and all that changes also. So we want to keep that consistent, keep it simple, and really just play with just the shot sizes and having the movement, when having any sort of movement that punctuates the story as we go along. So we kept it in that way. We're not over complicating certain things, and let the story take over and decide what kind of look that it needed that fits film. So for me, it was just trying to keep it that and balancing that a little bit, because melodrama can get a bit over the top, and it can be, I didn't want to keep it too overbearing also, and I wanted to keep it a consistent tone. Yeah.
And what is your opinion of the Singaporean movie industry at the moment? How would you describe it?
I think it's interesting to see a new wave of Singaporean directors who are making their first debut feature. There are co-production. There are a few projects right now that are some of them are in post-production. First feature films that are shot both in Singapore and a different country. For example, Nicole Midori Woodford, she was also a participant in the CFIC Lab. So she has her story that she is in post-production now. She's also she's in Busan working on the post-production grants. And her film is in Singapore and Japan. So then you have also Zhao Zhiwei's film that is shot in Singapore and Taiwan. And Alicia's film, a Singaporean director, has a film in Taiwan as well. So I think interestingly, and this is my observation, I think increasingly a lot of Singaporeans are seeing this opportunity to tell Singaporean stories, or stories that are kind of Singaporean in other parts of the world. And Singaporean films, I think, sometimes can be seen, not a lot of people outside of Singapore or even Singaporeans don't necessarily know what Singapore cinema is. They have an idea of what it is from the filmmakers that we have. But I think with this my new generation like myself, I think it is one thing to tell a Singaporean story in a more global way, and in that way to allow audience to access Singaporean story through a more globalized landscape. So at least for me, after I developed it and shot it, I realized I think Singaporeans will see this film. They're curious to see. They're curious to hear the Singaporean accent in a Korean setting, which is what they're familiar with. For example, like when I was editing, like I have friends who want to watch. Oh wow, let me see. Oh, I don't want to see a Singapore part. I want to see when you get to Korea. Oh, I want to hear her speak Singlish. I want to hear her speak in that accent, and they're very proud of it, because then they see us on a different, like on a more globalized stage. So maybe that is the direction or a trend, perhaps, I don't know. But it's also, I think, raising the bar a little bit of either through script and through production, raising the bars for other filmmakers in Singapore to kind of say this is a standard that we want to get to, and I think we're just leveling up in some ways. But I do hope that we get to see more Singaporean films out there. It's challenging, I think, for a lot of Singaporean filmmakers to want to make their features. and try to find audience for it. I think that's another challenging part, is the audience. Singaporean audience maybe sometimes not as receptive to their own Singaporean productions, because we have so much choices that Singaporean films sometimes are seen as maybe not as important, or more critical. They're more critical about Singaporean productions. So hopefully things are changing. I think we can try to, in a way, with film education with Singaporeans audience, is that they appreciate and support Singaporean cinema. And being here in Korea, shooting in Korea, and just being in Busan, you realize the culture here of cinema going is so admirable. You know, when you go to a screening, the audience asks passionate questions about the film. Not to say they don't do that in Singapore, but I think in Singapore sometimes it's a little more critical or more passive, and like, oh, okay, and then they don't really talk about it anymore. Yeah.
But in general, you're optimistic about the future of Singapore cinema?
I think so. I hope. I hope that realistically, if the film does well in Singapore, I think it would. I hope that it can help to push filmmakers in Singapore to also look at it in the way that they can also get to where they want to with their own films, and that my hope is that Singaporean audience would be more welcoming, not just with my film but with other Singaporean films as well. And there's so many stories that can be told. It's just that we need people to watch them.
Okay. When does the film open in Singapore?
The film opens in Singapore 27 October. We are having sneak previews 21st, 23rd October. So right after that, we will be in Golden Horse in Taipei, where the film is nominated for 4 awards: Best Original Script, Best New Director, Best Supporting Actor for Mr. Jong Dong-wan, and Best Leading Actress for Hong Hui-fang. So I think the buzz that we have kind of been creating in Busan, I hope will continue into the general release in Singapore, and continue into Golden Horse, and continue after that, and people will just keep watching and going to the cinema. And I think that's also the other thing about cinema going in Singapore, is that now that we are opening up from the pandemic, Singaporeans are not going into the cinema. They want to spend their money on concerts. That's everyone haven't gone to a concert in a while, so they're excited about that. People are traveling again, so cinema isn't something that is on the top of their list. And then streaming is just one way to watch films. But I mean, it's also reminding. I hope the film, when I watched it on the big screen for the first time in Busan, the music, the sound, the visual, it is a purely cinematic experience that I've created, that I urge Singaporeans to go back to the cinema, because it's truly a magical place to sit there with other people. You laugh and you cry together with strangers, and even at, I mean, what was moving for me in the premiere was I could feel people around me crying, like sniffling or reacting to what I wrote. And so that was incredibly moving for me, and I just hope that audience will have the same experience when you go, just going back to the cinema, and remember that kind of bringing their parents in, or I've been telling my mom to send she's been sending her trailers out to her friends on WhatsApp, and telling them that send it to all your auntie friends, ask your aunties to go back to the cinema, make a date, go for lunch, and then go watch a movie, and then have coffee somewhere, and then talk about the film. Aunties don't usually do that anymore, so they should start doing that, and that's the fun part about cinema that I love.
And last question, I guess, any plans, future projects, anything else working on?
At this point, I've been digging out some projects that I've been developing, both features and some TV series stuff that I've been working that I've sort of put aside because of Ajooma, but I want to start revisiting them and putting it together and deciding. I'm not in a hurry, but I want to enjoy this ride for the film has just begun. So it's seeing it through and then excited to bring out maybe the next film. It won't take another 6 years this time, I promise.
Okay, that's good. All right, I guess that's it. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Panos. Thank you.
Thank you. This was ASEAN Movie Pulse Talks from Panos Kotzathanasis. Have a fine day. Bye.